So Heather, this is a first. This is a first for a number of reasons. This is not the first porno we've talked about, first hardcore porno we've talked about. This is the first time I can say without a doubt that if you want to watch this movie, you can go on X-Hamster and find it. Because that's where I watched it, and most things I watch on X-Hamster don't have clowns using their nose to fuck people with. And I said most things.
I'm so proud of you. Like,
most, not all.
Not all. Like, there are exceptions. Yeah, of course, we're clearly talking about the 1989 classic Steel Magnolias.
Was it a fried green
with Dolly
tomatoes?
Parton and Daryl Hannah, Shirley MacLaine, Sally Field, Olivia Dukakis, and the baby eater herself, Julia Roberts.
Julia.
She's in the next Insidious movie, I hear. We get to see her true form.
I love the name Olympia Dukakis, and there's a lot of caucus on the screen.
That sounds like it does sound like a sex act, doesn't it?
It does. We're gonna give her the Olympia Dukakis.
Like, I'd be like, girl, what'd you do last night? She's like, I got the Olympia Dukakis.
And I got the Michael Dukakis.
Whoa! It's like a Blumkin, but gross.
And not satisfying.
Oh.
This is gonna be probably the most intentionally perverse episode of the Culture Cast, because on this episode, we're kicking off Just Fired July, where we're looking at surrealist films with a surrealist alt porno film from 1981 titled Nightdreams. And I'm joined not by Jess. Jess is not joining us, but I'm actually joined by your friend and mine. You've heard her here before. You're going to hear her here again. You've already heard her. Mondo Heather's Heather Drain.
Hello. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry that Jess is not with us.
Me too, kind of.
Was the movie too much for them? Where they were like, whoa, this is too weird, surrealist, even for me? We miss you, Jess, is what I'm trying to say. And we love you. And me and Chris will do our best. I think we'll do great. I am known to be quite the fan of one of the main artists behind this movie. We'll get into that.
Yeah, so that is actually one of the reasons that you're joining me on this episode, is because we're going to be doing 1981's Nightdreams.
Nightdreams is mesmerizing. Nightdreams is dazzling. Nightdreams is outrageous. Nightdreams is insane. Riveting. Nightdreams is hysterical.
Better eat it before it gets cold.
Nightdreams is surreal. Nightdreams is outlandish. Nightdreams is mysterious. Nightdreams is relentless. Magnetic. Sleek. Erotic. Nightdreams is indecent. Nightdreams is flaming. Nightdreams is steamy. Nightdreams is disturbing. Nightdreams is monstrous. Nightdreams is mutant.
Pain? Do you want to know what pain is?
Nightdreams is kinetic. Nightdreams is sweeping. Nightdreams is ethereal. Nightdreams is mind-boggling. Nightdreams is shattering.
Her libido was completely out of its cage.
Nightdreams. Erotic films will never be the same.
Yes, I am so excited. And this is anybody that is familiar with my work, all two of you, and I love you both fiercely. I'm a huge fan of Steven Sadian. I'm literally working on a book about his art, and this was Steven's first foray into cinema. Now, he's not credited as director. That is credited to FX Pope, which was a pseudonym for Francis DeLea, who him and Steven were creative partners at the time, and they did like a lot of advertising work together. Both come from Hustler, as does one of the writers, Jerry Stahl. And but if you're familiar with Stephen Sadie and his other work, this is pretty much officially Stephen's first film, as far as I'm concerned. And it's a ride. It's a wild ride, especially because a lot of times people are like, ooh, adult, and you hear porn and you think you know what you're getting into, which you don't. I mean, especially honestly with a lot of the classic era adult films, there's a wide breadth of variety, and you had an era where there are a lot of artists that were legit trying to make interesting works of art and film that just happen to have explicit sex, which is why I think it's so fascinating. And this is definitely a huge one. But I'm curious because, Chris, is this your first Stephen Sadie movie?
Yes. So
there's no wrong answer.
So what's funny is, we were talking before we turned the recorder on, as we tend to do. Mm-hmm. And so Jess is not joining us, obviously, but Jess and I were talking on Monday, and I was like, hey, have you watched the movie yet? And Jess was like, no, I don't know where to find it. And I was like, that's weird. Me either. And everywhere that I looked, it didn't come up. And so I Googled it again, and I just, 1981, watch online, X Hamster, and a bunch of porn websites came up, and I was like, okay, guess. And I went and I sent the link to Jess, and Jess and I were sitting there, and I was like, is there a clown fucking a woman with its nose right now? Jess was like, yeah. And I was like, do you know what the fuck you picked? And Jess was like, I saw it. It looked interesting. And Stephen Sadie and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe it is a porno. And so, no, I hadn't seen this. And I will tell you what, I was not expecting there to be full on penetration. I wasn't expecting it to be a porno. I do like that if you look for this movie and Google it, it says that Kevin James is in this movie. Kevin James, actor from King of Queens, not Kevin James, the actor with a magnificently large penis who plays an angel in heaven. So at least there's that. But no, a long answer to a short question. No, I had never seen any of his anything, including Cafe Flesh, which I know you're a huge fan of. I
absolutely am. I'm a huge fan of all of Stephen's work. He is one of our best auteurs, I think, that have come out of this country. And the thing about Stephen that I love is he has such a singularly unique visual thumbprint and approach to film. And it's funny because, I never think of his stuff as porn per se, to be honest, because, and I don't think there's anything wrong with pornography.
No. Agreed.
So let me get that out. So I'm not one of those snobs that's like, oh, porn. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with pornography. But
actually, there's a bigger problem if you're not into porn. Like, how do you get your kicks? Like,
well, most people that say they don't like it are probably the ones downloading illegally, the most not paying for their porn. You naughty people! If you're going to support these sex workers, okay? I'm not judging. We've all done it, but I'm just saying, if you're in a place to try and pay for your pornography.
I like how the strongness of the statement got a little less. If you can make time, if you can afford it, if you can't, just jerk off. I mean, we're all adults here.
Well, I do want to keep it real. Okay.
I'm with you.
But I will say I own a physical copy of Nightdreams. So
that's fair.
Yeah. Now, granted, the DVD cover, I'll rant more about how this film got released later, but on DVD. But my point is, like, with Stephen, to me, like, the main thing is never the sex itself. Like, the way that sex is integrated and sexuality is part of his landscape, which I find really so fascinating. Like, he really is. To me, it's almost like a painter that, it's like they'll have a graphic image, but it's a layer,
right,
with other layers, and and the history of explicit, like, sex being used in art goes back. I mean, obviously they're like to the caveman days, like, right, like cave art. I mean, but also, like, I mean, I find it interesting that what gets called pornography and what doesn't in this country. Because, like, you'll have a painter. I mean, people like Picasso. And Egon Schiele they have explicit sex in their paintings, but nobody calls them pornographers. But if you're making something that is aimed at a working class audience in America, that's porn. Like, I've always felt like it's a little classist, a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
if something's
it's derogatory.
perceived. Yeah, and it's like, and especially because people are like, oh, it can't be art if it's porn. Anything can be art if it's done a certain way and if it's approached a certain way. It's like, oh, that's just done for money. Well, so is a lot of Hollywood products. People enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with them enjoying it. So, you know what I mean? Like,
everybody's a whore for something. Like, I don't know. Like, I have a hard time getting, I guess, and not animated, but getting into arguments with people that want to denigrate porn, because anyone feeling like that's where they're coming from anymore, if it's not religious, I'll be impressed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like anymore, like if you don't even concede the benefit of something like pornography, it must be on religious grounds, because or you're a former pornographic actress or worker who had a bad experience, because like overwhelmingly having access to these kind of things is beneficial and employs people. Like you said, people who want to have sex for a living can go and have sex for a living and it not be criminalized the way sex work is, which is fucking horseshit in and of itself.
Oh, agreed. I mean, it's consenting adults. Like, if it's not your thing, that's fine. That's understandable. Don't buy it. Don't seek it out. It's easy. Nobody's forcing you to look at the banging.
Look at this. Look at this sex. It's dirty, dirty sex.
I mean, it's like, I'm not saying people should ban Forrest Gump. That's all I'm saying.
I mean,
but I don't want your filthy lifestyle of Tom Hanks with a bad Southern accent in my face.
That's fair.
Hollywood.
That's very fair.
But I'm excited that this was like your first, like, I feel like your first Steven Stadium film, no matter what it is. Like, this is the beauty of Steven. Is an experience you will never forget. And whether you love it, most people love it. Some people are like, what the fuck? But either way, it marks you. And I love that. My favorite artists in life are the ones that kind of mark you for life. Like, you're a changed person. And to me, that art at its most potent is transformative. And I'm still I want to interview Jess, though, about how they picked this and didn't know it was adult. Because you literally could go on IMDb and the first thing you see is X. You could wiki this and it says adult film. Like, this is not hidden information.
Sometimes it's just, we're going to watch something and this is a suggestion and I want to go into it cold. And the other time you're scrubbing through to make sure it's the right thing. And there's just a 10-inch erect dick on screen. And you're just like, oh, okay. This is a porno, Jess. What the fuck? What the fuck? Or it has pornographic elements. Because that's the thing. This is more akin to like an episode of The Twilight Zone, really, or like a horror movie. Because the setup is you have a woman in a room being sexually stimulated via a crown of electrodes, being watched by two people in a room while she does it. That's the setup of this entire movie. Or is it? I mean, that's the thing. Or is it? Right.
There's so much. Yeah. I mean, and you have this classic like housewife character, Mrs. Van Houten, played wonderfully by Dorothy LeMay, who I feel like was more of a cult adult film star. Like, she was never quite as big as, say, like a Marilyn Chambers or a Seika, but she's great. She's probably best known for being, I believe she's in Taboo. But she, for me, is of course Mrs. Van Houten. I think she's phenomenal here. And yeah, you think about it when you think of classic sort of like erotica situations, the horny housewife, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's so, but this film is kind of a little bit of a flip on that because, with some of the dialogue and, and this, again, you're getting the gift of dialogue written by Jerry Stahl, who, is now like a huge famous, novelist, of course, wrote episodes of CSI.
Alf as well.
Poor Jerry. Like, I mean, he never.
What?
This is the.
What's wrong with Alf? Gordon Shumway. Gordon Willie. He liked to eat cats. There's nothing wrong with that. And he's quite sexy. Was that too far? If this weren't the audio medium that it is, folks, you could have seen Heather's face and enjoyed it just like I did.
Aw. I live to please.
So does Alf, for that matter.
Too much. That's why he's canceled.
That's why he's got that big nose with all those ridges on it. Vaguely phallic.
he's canceled. He's out in Rikers with Harvey Weinstein and Epstein's ghost, Alf. But I mean, Jerry Saul's great, and of course Steven, and that's the thing. These two guys like are so funny and intelligent and just whip smart, and will throw dialogue, and just like, she's like, this whole repetition of "I know you're watching me," and just also her kind of talking like basically about how the doctors and maybe society at large are just assuming things about her. It's like, you think about a woman in that position, or anybody in that position, where you're not really given a lot of autonomy. You're not given value. You're just a trope.
Right.
That doesn't have desires and also, but like the way that each of her little like sexual fantasies are explored, you're almost kind of going through sort of this very like Dante's Inferno, through purgatory, through Inferno, literally, but figuratively too, with her id and her fears too, as well as her desires. Like it's so smart. And I'd be remiss to mention the doctors, the male doctor is Andy Nichols, who very underrated actor. He's in Cafe Flesh as Max Melodramatic, the MC of the titular club. And he is, if you saw both these movies back to back, you'd almost wouldn't think it was the same guy. Like, he's that good of an actor. Like, Andy Nichols should be talked about way more. Phenomenal presence. But you alluded, we have to bring up the first scene, because you keep talking about it. Now, it's technically not a clown.
It sets the stage in a good way. Like, again, like all of my, look, let's just be real here. Look, I, like so many other people, and I'm not going to make assumptions here, I don't think sex is a big deal. Like, I don't understand.
It's part of life. It's part of life.
I go further than that. So I would even go as far as to say, like, I don't understand why you can't just be like, let's just go bang, and then let's go get a hamburger. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as far as I'm concerned, like the vilification and mystification and kind of all kind heinousification, even like making it so taboo. Like, I just disagree with that. Like, I don't see what there is to get so animated about in like a really angry way. Like, it's just fun. You're supposed to have a good time, and then if you want to ascribe more to it, that's going to come from you and the other person there, because you can't just have a one-sided relationship, even if it is an immensely close and intimate one. So, like, that's the thing. Like, for all the jokes aside and kind of the glibness aside, like, I'm pretty progressive, very progressive, because I don't see it the way a lot of other, especially as like a married person, even, I don't even see it that way, which is a problem for me, mentally. But at the same time, like, it's a societal thing. Like, society vilifies porn. It vilifies everything. Some things need to be vilified, but the fact that my wife and I can't walk down the street and I have my shirt off because I fucking want to get a tan, and she can't have hers off too. It's like, who cares? Like, my nipples are nipples just like my wife's nipples, which is, if someone soundboards that, fucking thank you. But I don't get it. So, like, glibness aside, like, I'm glad we're talking about something like this. But yes, let's talk about clowns and Jack in the Boxes.
Well, before we get to that, no, I think I agree with you wholeheartedly, and that's one of the reasons why, as a culture writer and a film writer for years, I have always like tried to bring certain films up, not because they had, because like, oh, there's adult films. I'm like, no, this is a good movie. This is a great piece of art. Like, just because it has, the naked body in it. First of all, most great art is made for adults, whether it has sex in it or not. If you're watching, I don't know, like a Kurosawa film, that film isn't made for children.
Right.
There's nothing in a Kurosawa film that's like, explicit sex or even like super gratuitous violence, as far as being like super gory or whatever. But of course, most people don't have a problem with the children seeing violence, which is kind of fucked. But
Indiana Jones is made for adults. What are you talking about? They don't sell children's toys with a guy with a gun and a whip.
Yeah, I mean, it's the attitude that our culture and our country has towards sex and the human body in general is to me very devolved. It's very unhealthy, and
Agreed.
It's just it's created just generations of people that have like issues, that are unhappy with themselves. You have people that are so uncomfortable with who they are that they feel like they have to oppress others and their rights because they're not comfortable that somebody happens to be gay or polyamorous or trans or lesbian or even just public displays of affection. Some people are that repressed where it could be even just a hetero couple just, making out. And they're like, oh, or, oh no, that woman's showing cleavage. It's like, grow the fuck up. I'm sorry. Like, we are polluting this planet. There are wars going on, but you're worried about consenting adults having a good time together.
Correct.
It makes no sense. Even
I'm with you.
If it's not air flavor, honey, then don't worry about it. Don't have the sex. You're fine.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, the way I look at it as like, okay, you feel that way? More sex for me then. Like,
exactly. I mean, and also like, don't be so repressed. I had a friend once, like an old friend, who like good guy, little homophobic, but he was like, I don't know what I'd do if a guy hit on me. And I'd say, you say thank you, but no thank you. It's not that big of a deal, boo. Like, calm down. If somebody wants to bang you and they're nice about it, you don't have to bang them, but you could be flattered that somebody's, like...
Let them buy you a drink.
Yeah, it's not a deal. Like, I mean, unless you make it a big deal, come on, grow up. Like, and it's like, if you don't want to watch some great art because the human body's in it, it's your loss. But my thing is like, that's been part of like something I feel very important as somebody who loves art is to do this fight, because it's like, reading up on artists like Steven and having people be like, oh, porn. And they say it like that, like A, it's a slur, and it's not a slur, but also B, if that's all you get from his art, then you're blind. You're fucking blind. And I can't help you if you're blind, but I'm trying to help people that I think more people are smart than not. On some tastes. I have cynical tastes like everybody, but I think more people are smart than they're certainly treated by our culture, by Hollywood, by whatever. And, the thing is like, why are we okay with being treated like babies when we're adults in this country? Like,
I don't know. They want to treat us like adults in so many other things, except for the thing that they want us to do in the sanctity of our own homes. It's like, you tax us, you take our money that we make, you do all these other things, and yet we can't have whatever perverse, naughty sex we want with whoever, and society like somehow deems it inappropriate. Like, fuck you. Come on, fuck you guys, right? Like,
and it's to me, it's what I call false morality. Because to me, like real morality is the fact, like my home state has one of the highest rates in the country of not only poverty but food insecurity, especially for children. But these motherfuckers are worried about drag queens. Like, oh, our children. What should be worried about these kids having a good meal?
Yeah, but the drag queens can't offend them and breed them. Yikes. What is it? What's the word? Indoctrinate? Groom. Even the breeding comes after the grooming. Yes.
Well, in the Bible Belt, churches are grooming children left, right, or center. So I'm not saying sexually always, but it's
they want to complain about indoctrination, but yet gay people exist, even though we've been indoctrinated with heterosexual stuff forever. So I just want to point that out. People like myself that are gay still exist. So
yeah, it's ridiculous, and it's like that's the thing. It's like, oh, you motherfuckers don't care about kids. You don't care about kids when it comes to
somebody think of the children,
but they don't care about humans in general. It's not even just about kids. It's like we're gonna oppress people that are living their lives that aren't hurting anybody, because we're assholes and we're fascists, but it's also like a smokescreen. Like, we're going to do some crazy fucked up shit. It's like censorship. If something's being censored, they go after, we can do a LeBron back to this movie, to Hustler. Because Hustler was this great breeding ground for really outre, like cutting edge artists like Steven Sadie, like Jerry Stahl, even later down the road, like my friend Mike McFadden, so many great writers at Hustler. Hustler also published writers like Charles Bukowski.
Right.
And oh God, I'm trying to think the name. I'm blanking, but like one of Abel Ferrara's main collaborators. Like, people always act like Playboy was classier. Hustler was like the working man's Playboy, and that's why people would say, "Oh, Hustler." Ugh. But it's like, no, Hustler was a magazine that treated working class people not with sneers or classism. Playboy was classist. Playboy was something people could feel sophisticated. I feel like they're, because it's for people with money. this country's classist as much as it is sexually repressed. Larry Flint was no dummy, though. Like, Larry Flint was one of the greatest freedom fighters this country's ever had. Straight up.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That man willingly did jail time and got fucking shot. Like,
yeah, paralyzed.
Yeah. I mean, so come on. That's I was trying to think where I was going with this. I got so passionate. Like,
I'm with you. Like, well, and the problem is, like, I feel like the bullshit has to be met with passion, because the people that are so against porn and like sexual expression are very passionate about it. They're passionate about how much they hate it.
They're too passionate.
Yeah, like it goes back to the whole, like, are the straights okay? Like, that's the way that I look at it. Because, like, I mean, like, that is, for me, a lot of it's like, why do you care what two people do in the sanctity of their own bedroom?
Yeah. Also, like, on a slightly lighter note, but I'm also being serious. Look at the face of every person, past and present, that is, like, been a big oppressor, that's been super right-leaning, super, like, pro-censorship, anti-sex, anti-gay, anti anything that makes life amazing. That's what I'm saying. Look like they've never known an orgasm in their life. These are some of the most joyless human beings you will ever see. You want to look at the face of Pat Robertson and tell me that man ever enjoyed a moment in his life?
He probably enjoyed plenty of illicit, discreet gay sex that he never actually got to enjoy because he had to be in the closet the whole time. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's the fucked up thing. Like, these people are unable to let other people be happy, but when they want to exercise their rights, they do it in private. But you know what? They at least can't enjoy it. At least we know that they can't have the kind of sex that all these other people and all these other relationships that people can have out in the open. They'll never be able to have that. And that is punishment enough. It's just, you don't have to punish the rest of us because you're so repressed in your own existence. Like, yes, I get why this movie's rated X because it shows penetration, but that's only the MPAA. Like, you know, like, should you be showing a 10-year-old this movie? No. Should an 18-year-old see it? I mean, maybe if they want to watch this. Again, like, to watch this for the purposes of being turned on is not the point of this movie. Maybe. Well, not the sole intention. I don't think there's a way to show these kinds of things on screen without at least eliciting some kind of reaction. If it's being shown like this, I'm not talking about in like a violent way, because there's nothing in this movie that is remotely violent aside from the devil. Reem. Who said Reem?
Oh. As the proper heathen I am, I'm like, oh, like,
the devil wants to ream, everybody.
Oh,
good Lord.
Old Scratch.
Yeah, old Scratch with a big walking stick. So let's talk about, because it's essentially vignettes, so we can talk about these kind of separately.
Yes, we're going on a psychosexual journey with Mrs. Van Houten, which, by the way, oh my God, the name alone, which anybody who's familiar with the Charles Manson case should be getting. Because, of course, Leslie Van Houten was a Manson family member.
It just makes me think of Milhouse, which then makes me think of Richard Nixon. So,
God, I think the Manson family, sadly, a little sexier than that. But
what if there was just someone in a Nixon mask? And what if instead of a Jack in the Box, it was a guy in a Nixon mask?
That's
did the same thing.
Killer. No. I think a Jack in the Box is already pushing it, but it's still kind of whimsical. It's like a carnival night, which is kind of cool and fascinating. A guy in a Nixon mask is instant true crime, and I don't like it.
especially if the guy's already sweating like Nixon would be, just like in like a very, very fine layer of like dew, like a dew.
Well, and you know his diet was shit, so that any body fluid, sweat, whatever. Ugh. It's gonna have a smell that ain't close-ups. Which, by the way, this show, we're giving you listeners all the gifts. We're giving you cultural discourse, film and art, information, and a little tip for the people out there. If you want your fluids to taste good, improve that diet, y'all. Get some produce in your belly. Get some pineapple. Get some bananas.
Mango. Is it bananas? Mangoes? I don't know. I don't.
All of it. It's all good for you.
That's
corn
fair.
is the devil, though, and not in a sexy way. So don't eat corn.
Gross. It is.
I know.
It is phallic, though.
Well, I mean, who eats corn? I mean, unless you're John Cougar Mellencamp sucking on a chili dog. I don't think anybody eats corn where it's like...
Stick the corn cob in your mouth and just pull it out.
And the farmer's like, there it is. Your clitoris is in your throat. There it is.
Gross.
That's a little bugger.
So it's not a clown. It's a Jack in the Box.
It is totally a Jack. Now, I actually think something's more creepy in this scene than the Jack in the Box.
Okay.
The dolls, the surrounding toys in that room
that are surrounding her.
Yes,
watching effectively.
There's one that almost looks like, and I'm trying to think if the term is a laughing Sally, which was like one of this famous animatronic kind of jolly plump lady that would be like laughing. You'd see her a lot of variations of her at various fairs and carnivals. Okay. And I think I want to say those were called Laughing Sallies. There's a doll that looks kind of like a Laughing Sally, and that's like tattooed in my brain when I think of the scene. The Jack in the Box. What do you think is creepier, the nose or the rictus grin?
So what's interesting is it's like one of those half masks, right? So it's like eyes up or his face and then nose down. I don't know. I think what's actually creepier is the tongue that comes out from beneath the teeth sometimes, which
I love that.
That is the creepier part.
It's a little unsettling. It totally reminds me also this great Con of Fate from the 20s, where he's got this great sort of rictus grin. Is it the man who laughs? I'm blanking on the name, but it's a Conrad Veidt silent film, and that's so. Just there's something to me in unsettling about that kind of grin, but I love it. Puts you in such a weird. He's aroused. It's not like a rape fantasy or anything. She's into it. She's beautiful Dorothy LeMay, this gorgeous woman having a nice time with this oversized Jack in the Box who's very endowed.
Boy, isn't he? Holy.
I think, that is not a spring that sprung him out.
It was his third leg. Good night.
His penis.
Yes, Heather. I mean, look, you know what? He's a sex toy, literally. Right?
Oh, I never thought of it like that.
That's what I. Yeah. So that was that's the thing with this movie. I assumed every scene or vignette has there's a gag, there's a meaning or a joke meaning or something. So my assumption was, he's a sex toy because get it, toy Jack in the Box pops out, got his big wiener too. Just
it's also kind of like. It's like her weird id, though, where she's clearly partially kind of revisiting a room she might have had as a kid,
right?
But it's now processed through her adult id filter, and it's almost kind of like sometimes you'll have a weird dream, and maybe it could be a sex dream, could be just a regular dream, but you'll have something pop up from your past, but it's it's put in a blender kind of and then it's that's how it also kind of feels to me. I love the audio is so good. The different layers. I wish we had a better copy access because everything, I haven't seen it on the tube sites, but I'm assuming because even the DVD is basically from a VHS. It's not the best quality. But even with the kind of not great quality, you can hear the care that, they put into having layered audio that make it a little more unsettling and kind of flesh it out. No pun intended.
Well, I was actually going to say, the only thing that I found grating actually was in some of the scenes, the looped audio. That's I don't know, in the scene where she's with she's in the opium den, though it's a hookah lounge. They loop the audio, and it's it's at one point I just couldn't stop focusing on the looping of the audio, and I was like, and I was like, maybe for somebody this is not getting on their nerves, but for me specifically as an audio guy, I couldn't help but keep focusing on the audio looping, which is totally fine. It doesn't beat the Ring of Fire cover, which
nothing does.
Well, Old Man River, I can never unhear now.
Oh my God! Wait, we got to save that. That's my favorite part. We gotta wait for that. Savor it.
But it's funny because the audio, it's a little bit much, but I see what you're getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with this scene, I didn't mind some of the repetition because to me, it's just it just felt like kind of like you're almost like at a carnival where a lot of the automatic stuff is loop. Like the music and even some of the like, little like sort of like interstitial noises and some of the like rides and stuff. They'll just have it piped in. The hookah. I feel like I'm saying it sounds like I'm saying hooker, but with an accent. Hookah?
Hookah, yeah, or hookah. Either way.
Like sort of like the sort of pseudo Arabian Nights kind of opium den scene. That's actually my least favorite in the whole movie because I feel like it's a little more, I wouldn't say it's rote by any means, but comparatively to everything else in the movie, I feel like it's kind of the more sort of like down low one.
Isn't that the point though? I mean, because like there's that lead in where she's like, I want to be like used as like a thing, like as an item, like, and then like that's how she's used in that. I mean, it's like it's the most pedestrian intentionally, right? Like it's the most like anything else you would see in any other porno. But I think that that's kind of like a pretty novel way of commenting on this. I mean, like the perception of pornography as commoditization versus artistic, right? Because like everything else, you could say like, oh, these are artistic. And I think they are. And I think that there's art in everything, but more mainstream people, it'd be harder to convince them. But like, it's the most genuinely pornographic of anything in the movie is that.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I will say something that's kind of cool of note is one of the gentlemen in the scene is an actor named Ken Starbuck, who I believe was of Native American lineage, which you don't often think about Native American actors in classic adult, but there were a few. There's him, Jeanette Littledove was an actress, and I feel like there was at least Hypatia Lee. So that's kind of cool. I mean, think about it though. I mean, Hollywood wasn't really like using Native American actors as their like mainstream stars,
Fair.
but adult was. So, and even though like the adult industry, even now it has some stuff they need to work on as far as like racism, like any other industry in this country. I do think it's cool, at least that there were like Native American performers that, had that. And Ken Starbuck pops back up in Cafe Flush because I think he is there's a humanoid rat milkman. You need to see Cafe Flush.
Apparently. I was also going to say, to also comment on kind of the progressive nature of this, there's a lot of progressive sex being had on screen, a lot of ass eating, anal sex. I mean, stuff that, again, like mainstream pornography is only now really like not tackling per se, but is finding it to be more palatable, I guess. Like ass eating has become kind of a meme in and of itself now. But like I think that speaks to the point of like ass eating is just like analingus, cunnilingus. Like there's a lot of it in this movie, and that wasn't necessarily the thing at the time in 1981 to be showing female centric porn as well, where it's less about the man being pleasured and more about, I mean, in almost all these scenes, it's about her pleasure, not the men specifically.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like this film is really feminist. And it's like, I went into it. Of course, I try to go into any film in general, especially if it's a new film for me, just completely like a blank slate. I try, I mean, am I always successful? Some days more than so, depending. But it's always good to try and go to something as objective as you can. But it's like one of the things, especially the more I thought about it, I'm like, this is to be progressive because it is really all about her pleasure and what she wants.
Right.
And, and kind of the cool thing is like with Steven's stuff is any of the accusations, if somebody wants to say, oh, well, adult films are sexist or this or that. And it's like women in the Steven Sadian universe are always like the most colorful, the most fascinating, I'll half the time get the best dialogue. I mean, some of the guys do too, but that's the thing. It's like, there's not really, there's not really any bad agendas going on here in any of his adult films. In fact, even in his later stuff, like the Party Doll Go-Go series, the women for sure rule that roost. Like all of the female characters, the guys are almost like, they're almost more objectified than the women are. But that's something that is very refreshing. And having, I mean, there were a few directors that tried to be very female centric. And actually tried. Some were absolutely. Damiano was, Bradley Metzger. But with Steven, it's just like he's his own artist. And with Van Houten, she's such a like, even though like we're meant to think she's the patient, she's clearly like such a like, I hate using this term, but she's like an alpha. She's totally kind of just like, she is full of assertion with the insertion. She's the assertive assertist.
And that's the thing. I mean, you know, all of the stuff that happens in this movie in terms of the penetrative sex is not only wanted, but she is in control in all these scenes for the most part. Like, I guess you could make the case in the kind of the native den, like the opium den, like that might be the only one. But like, she has a full-on lesbian fantasy because she wants to have a lesbian fantasy. Like, that happens because she wants to have that same-sex encounter. And like you said, I mean, it's all about the control that she's asserting over other people. I do like that the movie kind of baits you into the idea that that's not the case. But I think that's one of the smarter, I mean, this movie is put together by people that are trying to get a reaction, right? I mean, you say auteur, I agree, but I would also say provocateur, because this is provocative entertainment, right? Like, you know, like I'm not putting this on for my family on a fucking Saturday, but there might be a group of people where I'm like, you know, you want to watch this kind of weird ass, like kind of transgressive, very progressive porno movie. Like, again, like, I don't even know how you would explain this to someone. Like, because like anyone would look at this and say, this is porn, but it's not porn, but it has pornographic elements. So does that make it porn? Like,
yeah, I mean, but so does In the Realm of the Senses. I mean, so does Von Trier's Nymphomaniac.
Right. Again, like, I just don't know what the fact that there has been a line created and stuck to by people for seemingly arbitrary reasons is why I say, like, isn't it? Like, that's why I'm unwilling to say, because I don't want to put this movie in a box, because putting things into boxes isn't very fun.
Oh, and boxes should be, I mean, I'm not a fan of categories, even though, like, we all sometimes do it just to, you know, because, like, when you're writing about anything or doing a podcast, like, you know, sometimes you kind of have to, like, have some framework just to kind of help explain it. And I mean, so if you ask me, I would say, to me, this is outre surrealism, high art with pop cultural. The thing is, like, we have even like pop culture art, which is a theme. That's the thing. Steven has a big background in advertising, like, you know, and especially, I mean, like, even in Hustler, like, he did all the Leisure Time Products, which was Hustler's own like sex toy company, but all of his ads for them, I mean, some of them look like Norman Rockwell like setups. Like, they're so wholesome. And there's even one like where it's like the Little Miss Muffet, but it's got, you know, the only thing that's really unwholesome, it's like, you know, hey, here's a shank. Here's a vibrating shank, you know.
Sure.
And it's that kind of subversion. I mean, I would also call it very subversive with what he's done, because people go into these films thinking, oh, it's porn, it's adult, and it is adult, but is it porn? I wouldn't call it porn, but when I think of porn, I think of something that's just pure sex. And again, nothing wrong with that. But to me, when I think of porn, I mean, that's just something that's just a little more meat and potatoes. But can that be art? Of course. I'm a fan of Marcel Duchamp, who's just like, you can point at something and is that art? If you call it art, you know? Right. I have that flexibility. I think when people get so hard-lined about anything, that's where it's not as fun, and it also just kind of ruins any good discussion. But
I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, these characters though, and the fucking journey you go on. Like, one of my favorite scenes is, and this is like an interstitial bit, there's no sex in it, and it's like, but you know, she approaches like this sort of automaton man who's like making these weird kind of like almost like mechanical typefaces. Like, he's clearly like has the flesh of a man on his face, but she's trying to like, you know, unbutton his trousers, and she keeps hitting metal, and then she pulls out like a fetus, like a rubbery. And I mean, you imagine being in an adult movie house, like, where guys, you know, the raincoat. And they're probably like, what? I can't work with this. Like, but Yeah, granted, this film did get a lot of great reviews in the adult press. Cafe Flesh got more divided, but Cafe Flesh got great reviews in a lot of places, but I think some of the adult movie critics felt like it was the film might have been kind of making fun of people that go to see porn in adult movies, which you could interpret it, but I think there's other ways, and that's another podcast. But Nightdreams did get great adult movie people as a whole, in the trade magazines loved it. But you still get scenes like that, and it's always, I found that one really fascinating because it's almost it could just be something fun and surrealist, just to have that provocative image. It also could be, who knows, maybe she had a miscarriage. Maybe she has sexual hangups because of something that happened with the child that didn't have, that wasn't brought to term,
Right.
It gives you that food for thought. And I definitely think most people don't, especially a modern audience where so much of adult film has kind of almost gone back to its origins. I feel like things that are basically kind of like lube is more popular than, which that's the origin of adult, is stag lubes. And, if you're going to Pornhub, most people aren't probably going to be watching a whole narrative film. Now, I am of the understanding that there are more people in the industry that are kind of going back to that, to having narratives, which I think is really exciting. I think anything that you can make creatively that bends people's brains on what they think something should be is good. I think it's healthy. I think it's really healthy in the art and with film, especially.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And I also think, the thing that's interesting about a movie like this is that because it's kind of rides this weird line and exists in such a weird spot where, yes, it is an X-rated movie, but again, the sex and kind of the sexiness of the movie is not necessarily the point. It's well, why is it X then? Because it shows penetration. Okay. So that's it. So apparently penetrative sex is X-rated. And that's what the expectation is. So you can't show penetrative sex. So adult has to be its own thing. But I think to call it adult is probably better than to call it porn. I think that's a better way of putting it. Because only adults should be watching this stuff, right?
Yeah, but only adults should be watching a lot of things.
Agreed.
That's it's okay. It's, I don't know, not to get too far into the weeds, but Lenny Bruce famously said in the 60s that in America, you can show a woman having her breast severed or cut off, mutilated, before you could show it being caressed.
Right.
And that mindset has really depressingly not left a lot of people. And I personally don't have a problem with violence in movies at all either. But when it comes to with movies where it's oh my God, nudities, that's really wrong. But you're okay with watching, even if it's simulated people getting, maimed, murdered, that's that's fucked up. But going back to Nightdreams, there's the little layers we get with Van Houten and the humor too. We get, I don't know, we got to go to the cowgirl scene because you mentioned the lesbian, and it's probably, if this film has a lot of iconic scenes in my opinion, this is probably, I think for a lot of people, the number one. It's my number two because my number one's the Cream of Wheat Man, but we'll get into that a little bit. The
dildo in the holster is pretty good.
That's so cute, right? And the sort of the mirror image girls, and which I believe is Danielle and Jacqueline Lorians, who were pretty who worked a lot in that industry. And if you see these two girls in other films, they don't really look that much alike, but the way that they're lit and the way that clearly they rehearsed them, and right. I could probably let know. I found out from the man himself recently, and I feel like for such a dummy for not putting this together on my own, but Steven had put up to me that their whole sing-songingness that they have together, where they're April showers, bring May flowers, that thing is a reference to the Peanuts from Mothra. You guys watch the Mothra movies, how the Peanuts, the two little twin fairy princesses that speak in unison and sing together to usher in Mothra. It's an homage to them, which that makes me love him even more. Because if there's anything I love as much as provocative auteur cinema, it is Mothra, aka Mosura.
And just hot covers of Ring of Fire.
Wall of Voodoo, babies. Oh my God. One of the
cover alone, like
it's legendary. It's legendary. And this band is one of the greatest post-punk bands, in my opinion. Wall of Voodoo, very underrated. And this is a band.
That's what this reminds me of. No. Is like it's like punk porn. Punk porno, right? Like it's but like not like in a bad way. Again, like the punk.
How could it be in a bad way?
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like the punk scene is so like lovingly transgressive that like it you know, Gigi Allen, our good friend, fucking what's the guy from the Executioners?
Oh God, El Duce, the Mentors.
The Mentors, yeah, like those kind of people. I mean, you know, and like that world and this kind of makes sense. I'm sure Stephen Sadie and his friends with or hung around in similar circles, even like trying to be transgressive, right? Like Night Flight, right? Like this is Night Flight, but porn, like you know, but penetrative and adult. Like they couldn't do that on public broadcast, but they could do it here, like, and they will, and they would. Why not?
Well, I mean, Stephen's office at the time was literally like either like above or near the infamous punk club, The Mask, where, you know, bands like The Germs and X and The Bags and, you know, just all of these great bands that, you know, that played. I mean, this was like sort of like, you know, patient zero for the punk scene in LA, for the OG punk scene, which was very diverse. Like, that's the thing. A lot of people, unfortunately, again, kind of, you could make a mirror image to how people view sex films. You know, people like punk, they just think of angry white boys that are skinheads. And it's like, no, the early punk scene had women and men. It was, you know, equal genders, people of various ethnicities, people of very LGBT. Like, the Screamers were one of the biggest bands on that scene. And, you know, Tomato de Plenty, openly gay, had ties to the Coquette, legendary drag troupe. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, it was such a cool scene. That was actually more utopian as far as people of just misfits really coming together. And there's no judgment. There's none of this prejudice bullshit. It's just people like, you're a misfit, I'm a misfit, let's make art. And right. Which is how it should be. Much more so than I think the hippies ever did. You know, like the punk scene.
I agree.
The punk scene actually did it for real. You know, for a time. You know, everything gets codified, and that's why you have to rip it up and start again, to quote the band Orange Juice. But no, I mean, Stephen had musicians help crew and you know, crew as far as like helping with props and stuff with his films. It goes on all the way to Dr. Caligari, where it legit had members of Wall of Voodoo, you know, especially Bruce Moreland, OG member, and still a kick-ass musician. Love Bruce. He's in a band called Ravens Moreland, which is phenomenal, especially if you're into kind of dark goth kind of West Coast rock, which I certainly am. So yeah, that tie with music is huge. It's huge with Stephen. And he would go on to like their video for Mexican radio, which is Wall of Voodoo's best known song. That was directed by him and Francis. And I mean,
that's what this looks like. Like
exactly. That's what this and thumbprint.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when I heard that the Wall of Voodoo and I heard the voice, it's like I know what this is. Like and like that's why I was totally into this movie. Like, and I know again, like glibness aside, you know, the first time you could jerk off to something on the Culture Cast, that is the truth. This is like the sexiest thing we've ever watched, other than when you programmed that month and it was all like softcore sex films, I believe.
She-Mob, come on, Big Shib. She had a spiked bra that she punished bad men with, and that was fucking.
But this is way more like sexy than those movies. Like this is like again, like this is real sex on HBO. So is that the name of a show? Real Sex?
No, I remember.
I vaguely remember watching something like that in college.
I vaguely remember sneaking up late at night when I hoped everybody was asleep and watching that.
Talk about how unsexy of a fucking show with the title sex.
It was
in
very
the title.
disappointing. I'm like, oh, that was interesting. Was it sexy? Yeah.
This man has a bifurcated penis. That's not sexy at all.
I did not see that. Holy shit.
As a later episode.
Whoa. Yeah, I guess that I wasn't like,
I just like the word bifurcated.
did he do that on was he born?
Dude, that's a thing. There's like a whole like
is it split like how like you'll cut like did you ever microwave hot dogs as a kid and you'd like cut the middle?
Are they gonna say grill hot dogs? Same thing happens.
But I mean, right? Is that what it looks like?
Talk about getting into the weeds, but like genital modifications, obviously a very big thing. And then obviously, there's the Prince Albert, which everybody always talks about, which is the male and the urethra piercing. And then there's the one where it's like down the shaft. But the thing that like I don't hear a lot of people talking about, and I remember looking it up in college, yucking it up with all my ding dong friends, was like what would be considered almost mutilative, but like you're like cutting it like in half, like that.
Can you still even have an orgasm like that?
I don't know what the purpose is, but like on Wikipedia or somewhere they had like, how if you scroll to the bottom, it's got like the box with all the things in it. And like a box with all these things you could click on that were each a different kind of penile mutilation or extreme body modification is probably the better way of putting it. Cause I don't want to yuck somebody's yum, but yeah, like you could do it like this. You could do it like this. Yeah. Like, I don't know why it sounds like it would hurt, but I mean, I guess people get their tongues split.
I mean, we're all in a different path in this life.
The Earth's heating up. Why not cut your dick in half? Like, isn't that a bumper sticker that,
I think we got some new merch ideas here for the Culture Cast, Chris.
Right. The Earth's heating up, cut your dick in half.
Yeah.
The Culture Cast, folks. What is this show even about? We don't know.
Culture.
Culture, of course.
You're welcome, people.
And bifurcating ding-dongs.
No, but go back to the cowgirl scene, though. Another sort of like, what I consider a hallmark of Steven's art is you have that great sort of like faux nature. Like, it's obviously everything's on a set. You have that great sort of like dusky lit kind of night sky and like all of the outlines of like the hills and the desert, but it's all in black. Like it's like almost like a woodcut or which is so cool. And that's the thing is like nature shows up a lot in his films, but it's always sort of like in these very like obviously like false nature. And it's kind of cool. It's a very like, think about it, if you're like a product of like modern America to a point, you get into an era where people are, astroturf becomes a thing. People have bowls of fruit on their table with fake fruit. What is the point of that? I've never understood the whole fake fruit thing. But, there's something to me like so quintessentially like suburban mid-America of like we want nature, but let's have it be artificial. Like it's weird. It's weird, but it's a statement. And, and then having these two cowgirls like, and it's just, it's such a cute scene. It's really beautiful. It's lovely to look at on an erotic level. Like everybody looks like they're having a good time. And you've got that music. Oh my God. I mean, Wall of Voodoo set to anything is automatically better, but then set to like Steven Sadia, forget it. It's the best.
No, that seems great. Like if I had ever seen anything from this movie, I'm surprised it wasn't that. Like I had never seen anything, but like I'm surprised nobody had ever been like, you should check this out. What is this from? What is this movie? Well, that's the thing. Like that's the other thing about this movie is like it doesn't disappoint. In that regard, like it keeps ramping up what's going on. Like, because, you go from the cowgirls to then the kind of opium den scene to then what you already mentioned with the automaton to then what I would assume is a rape fantasy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is such a great scene, which, by the way, for any of you De Palma fans out there, you should recognize an image from this because Steven designed the poster, the original poster for Dress to Kill, and it's literally a shot from this scene. I mean, it's staged. It's not literally, but I mean, it's like the connective tissue is so strong. And that's the other thing is like Steven like designed a number of movie posters Yeah, including this one and The Fog, Carpenter's The Fog, and Escape from New York.
Interesting.
So cool. Like what an amazing career. And I mean, that's just me giving you kind of cliff notes. But no, this scene with that great sort of black and white, like that's such a stark looking scene. Like her lingerie is black, even her lipstick's kind of dark, like it's almost black. And we have the intruder, and it's totally set up like a horror movie.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like that tension. Yeah. And he's wearing a black and white mask that almost looks like, to me, it's almost like one part like a weird, it almost looks like a ritualistic mask, but it also kind of reminds me of that Star Trek
Yes, thank you. That's what I thought it was. The one with Melvin Belli, you mean?
And I believe Frank Gorshin.
Yeah, I just remember Melvin Belli is in it.
I love Frank Gorshin. Oh my God, Frank Gorshin.
That's what it made me think of, was Frank Gorshin.
I want to say that episode was written by Harlan Ellison.
I think you're right.
And whom I love. God, it's like Frank Gorshin and Harlan Ellison. What a world to be living in. Like this, life could never be too bad, right? But the scene, it's clearly a rape fantasy. Obviously,
even down to the mask. Like, don't you like that? How it's like, it's not a white guy. It's not necessarily a guy of color either. It's either I like that. Like, it's just, I like that because it doesn't make the movie overtly political or overtly like making a statement. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, she could be fantasizing about either. So it's a guy with, black and white mask.
But it's also kind of like a way almost dehumanizing him as opposed to her being dehumanized as the victim, because he's just he's literally just a figure in a mask.
Right.
He's really given no human traits other than he's and she's obviously into it. It's not like if somebody
fantasy like that's
it's not like some creepy if things of that nature creep you out, then maybe just the thought of it, if just the thought of this, if what we're telling you is freaking you out, then maybe don't watch it. But it's certainly not, I wouldn't call it a roughie. And that's the thing in any of Stevens' films. There's not ever anything that's like rough or masochistic or anything that's, would be considered, I think, extreme. The surrealism is more the elements kind of around the sex. The sex acts in and of themselves are pretty, I would say pretty, other than the rimming, it's pretty vanilla,
As they say, that's the name of our new show, Other Than the Rimming.
That's also some new merch.
Chris and Heather. Where we talk about everything but rimming. We won't talk about rimming, but we'll talk about everything else.
Yes. So, yes. So on that episode of Dynasty,
right? But
Joan Collins did not rim Linda Evans.
But Larry Hagman though on Dallas, boy, rimming everybody.
You think he keeps the hat on?
Oh, it's on.
Ooh. Come on, Hoss.
I'm not saying that the people in this don't come, because they do a lot. Plenty of people do, but I never get the sense that it's performative sex. Does that make sense? I don't know how. I know that the people are enjoying it, but the sex is not the point, right? I mean, you said it yourself. Like, the sex is not
in this film. I mean, it is,
but it isn't.
The performers, this is more. This film does have I would say a strong sense of eros. Like, it is, with Cafe Flesh. In that universe, it's like the sex is very mechanical. Because it's tied to the story, and the performers in that, we're told, try to act mechanical, don't try not to act like you're into it. It's not a rape thing or anything, but it's just it's a job,
right?
In that universe, literally. And since we're dealing more with fantasy, it is more eros. I think that's the other reason why this got a lot of good reviews in the adult, in adult mags, and with writers like the late Bill Margold, R.I.P., which Bill was the great writer and also very strong, first rights, First Amendment rights fighter. Also, started a nonprofit to look out for the welfare of adult performers, which was called PAW. And so, very progressive. I know he was a very controversial figure, but Bill did, Bill, when he was, I think, on this, or tried to, definitely did a lot of good. But he loved this film. He hated Cafe Flesh, which I disagree with. But part of that was because it wasn't erotic. It wasn't the point. Nightdreams is interesting because it is erotic, I think you could call it erotica, and that's fine, like, because it is like Eros based. But and of course, if you're like Gloria, like I love Gloria Leonard, who is a great adult actress and writer, and she always said the difference between porn and erotica is lighting.
That's fair. Yeah.
Which is fair too. But so no, I mean, it's, if you're looking for something weird but also has like sensual moments, like Nightdreams is good. It's a good blend of that, I think. But I mean, and especially nowadays where you could literally probably see an orgy of clowns, which is also new merch.
Daddy, don't insult Daddy Wise that way.
Oh, Daddy Wise.
Daddy Wise. So yeah, that speaks to just like people will like sexualize anything. Like, you know what you say, like you can point at something and say that's art. I have seen people who are turned on and have made body pillows for Bluey's father from the television show Bluey, which is about an animated dog. So like, not yucking anybody's yum. I'm just saying, like, you want to say that, porn isn't art or art isn't porn. If you can turn art into porn, then how is porn not art?
I feel you. I had a friend that once sent me Jay and Silent Bob slash fic.
Oh, was it the two of them banging?
In a very sadomasochistic way.
Oh,
but you know what? But what bothered me the most was how emotional it was, where there was like crying and knitting. I was like, okay, I get the banging, but this like angst, the emotional angst of it was wild. I did not care for it, but if it makes somebody happy, that's cool. Life is short. If you're not hurting anybody, that's, it's fine. But I prefer to watch great movies like Nightdreams, see?
Well, I was going to say, like, what kind of slash fic is there about a woman blowing a cream of wheat box?
Oh my God. Okay, thank you. We have gotten to my favorite. For fuck's
sake, Heather. What is happening here?
This is, if you guys want a peek into my mind and like what gives Heather tremendous happiness, this is easily in the top 5. This is right next to Timothy Carey dancing, which is a huge joy bringer to my heart. Or the Italian band Devil Doll, which also brings a lot of joy to my heart. This scene, for anybody listening who hasn't seen it, Mrs. Van Houten is in the kitchen making breakfast, and she's making cream of wheat. And it starts kind of like, she has like some suggestive line about like, oh, it's so creamy down my throat.
Which is funny as fuck too on top of her.
And then she hears a voice say, it was like, you better eat it before it gets cold. Yep. And she turns around and it's a giant cream of a man, how would I even describe this? An anthropomorphic cream of wheat box. That's anatomically correct. And then Old Man River comes on the soundtrack, and they are, they're interlocking, interacting in a very friendly way with each other, set to the rhythm. Like, they're snapping their fingers during BJs. Like, it's so great.
I love the snapping of fingers while he's being blown.
Wasn't that? I loved it too.
That is the motherfucker keeping beat while getting dome is great.
Yeah, I was like, how can this get better? This cannot get better. And then it gets better, because then you have a dancing piece of toast wearing motherfucking saddle shoes, which is the most stylish footwear on the planet, dancing and then doing a saxophone solo.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Okay, Christmas is every day for Mama, because this exists. And on top of that, do you know who's playing our beloved Toast Man? It's Steven Sadian. I already, even if I didn't, for anybody listening, Steven is not only a great auteur, he's a great human. Legit, just like one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. Like, such a just awesome human being. But even if you didn't know that about him, you would love him and build an altar to him just for being the fucking Toast Man. Like, the Toast Man, he's a dancing piece of toast playing the saxophone. That is, oh my God, that's the greatest thing on earth. You can have your Iron Man, you can have your Yodas, your Yoda people.
Your Yodas.
Your Yodas.
You can have your Yodas.
Yeah.
You can have your Yodas. I don't want them. Take your little green feller and get him out of here.
You can have your bad AI, CGI, horse shit, whatever. You can take that and fly it off to the moon for all I care. had dancing piece of toast playing the saxophone to Old Man River. And then who's dancing side by side by Cool Reap Man? You're welcome. The Lord loves you.
You can thump your Bible and you can have your dancing toast, man. Nightdreams 42069 says, suck my dick. God.
This is literally the only podcast, I feel like we could bet money, that is talking about sexual politics in America, Nightdreams, transgressive, I wouldn't say this is transgressive, but outre art, and Stone Cold Steve Austin impersonation.
He's here. He's here, and he's here, and he's ready to.
This needs to be on your Patreon.
What would he be doing watching this? Just be like, just jerking off furiously.
Hey,
Deborah, come in here. You're never gonna believe this. This Jack in the Box has got his nose up this woman's hoo-ha. That's what I imagine he calls it, because he's like a 5-year-old. So
when he unzips his jean shorts, does it sound like glass breaking? That's a reference. Weird. If you're a wrestling fan and you're into Art House, you will get that reference.
God.
And
this is why we create the content, Heather. That's why. I am disappointed, though, at the end of this movie, we didn't get Radu in the hell scene. Instead, we got like a Fu Manchu devil.
The devil's great, though. The prosthetics.
They're pretty good. They're well lit. Glenn Hetrick would not have any problems.
Oh, my God. And the,
his fucking dick just hanging and flopping around is just too much for me to handle. Not enough for everybody else to handle, clearly, but too much for me.
Would you say too hot?
To handle, too cold to hold. Look, let's just get this out there, folks. Every single male performer who drops trow in this movie has a big fucking dick. And it's almost like to the point where like it almost feels kind of not comedic, but like I appreciate just like, all right, if we're gonna do this, like we need to have people that are like hung like horses.
In defense, this was an era of like a lot lot of the male talent then and now. I think it's worse now, actually, because at least back then you occasionally would get like, you know, somebody like say like a Jerry Butler, you know, who, you know, Jerry was not small by any means, but he was like some girls actually preferred him because he was like 6 or 7. It's like, this isn't gonna like injure your cervix, you know. It's not going to come out of your mouth while you're having that.
Heather,
sex,
what the fuck?
What?
What kind of slash fic are you listening to, reading?
Or writing. No,
or writing. I've read some of your risque stuff.
But it was PG. Let's be honest.
Radu's long fingers were never mentioned, you're right.
Well, because did you see the nails on that? Oh, hell no.
Clip them. Everybody knows that.
Listen, I don't even like watching 80s porn where women had those dragon nails and they have a girl scene. I'm like, oh, your vagina's in danger. Yeah. Like, get that away.
I will say I do love some, what I guess now would be considered what Pee Wee Herman likes, vintage erotica. I do enjoy, like, after I got done watching Nightdreams, I like watched some like vintage porn for a while. Just like,
now when you just like what era?
Like the 80s, like the late 70s, early 80s.
Oh yeah, it's a great era.
Yeah. What did you think I was talking about?
Well, vintage could be like 20s. You know, it could be like the 1920s.
Hello, my lady. Would you like to suck my cocker?
That exists. Actually, you know, in France, and they actually found, like, this is a thing you can access. There is a stag film from the late 20s from France that is a satanic black mass orgy.
Oh my God,
shit.
I would watch that.
It's
I figured out where I'd go back in time if I had a fucking time machine.
Isn't that amazing?
He just wants to be part of this devil orgy. Well,
I love that.
At least I love that for you. I love that for you.
I feel like you know, like King Diamond would approve of that. And you know,
I mean, look, who hasn't wanted to have an orgy with the devil in hell?
That is also my favorite Van Halen song that never came out.
Orgy with the devil.
Oh, God damn it, baby.
David Lee Roth talking about sucking on the end of the devil's pecker. I'd listen to that song. Oh, it's big like a baseball, about the big as an apple. I don't know. I'm no David Lee Roth. Sorry, folks.
Well, at least you weren't Sammy Hagar, and that's the least I could ask.
I think Sammy Hagar may be the devil. Actually, haven't you seen his hair? He looks like a human poodle, though, or like a human, like a shepherd dog. You know what I'm talking about? That hair.
The true Lord of evil and deceit and lies would give us things like Cabo Wabo. So you may be onto something,
right? The real devil, though, would not say ream. Who said reaming? Oh, God. There is, in that scene, there's strap-on sex, even.
Mm-hmm. Which that strap-on kind of scares me.
Oh, my God. It does not look pleasant.
No, but you find if you watch enough older films, sex toys of a certain vintage, shall we say, all look like they're dangerous to a woman's spot or any orifice. I wouldn't, bunghole, vaginal, whatever.
Became LBJ all of a sudden there for a second. Hey, I need you to let out the pockets because I hang near my. Have you ever heard that? LBJ on the phone with his tailor talking about his bunghole. He's literally like, make sure there's enough room in my pants for my bunghole. and you know what? We thought we were living in crazy times, folks. I mean, that guy had a huge cock apparently. So, you know.
Oh,
did you not know about that? He apparently had like a fucking hog. He called it Jumbo and like would like take it out in meetings. It's a different time. A different time. I'm dead fucking serious.
When you say LPJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson?
Hell yeah. He called his dick Jumbo, yo. Hey, he's from Texas.
God. I don't think anything's ever going to be sexy to me again.
Ladybird. Just think about Ladybird now.
That's like, look the thing about your, like somebody's gross ass great uncle. That's all. That's like, I got my chewing tobacco
in my pocket near my bunghole.
Oh God.
The way he says it, bunghole.
I feel like my ovaries just died.
Mine too.
Oh, I know. This is ovary death.
The rabbit that they use on Dorothy LeMay looks unpleasant because that's what that would be.
I don't like
now,
that.
right?
I don't approve of that rabbit.
Right? That's a rabbit, right? Like a modern day equivalent.
It's like an early.
It leaves a lot to be desired.
I would call it a like a what is that cryptid, a jackalope?
Dickalope. I don't understand. It seems like they're actually using it backwards even because like it looks weird because like the one thing just looks like a cylinder with like an antenna on the other one. And then the other one looks like a sort of like a dick, like a demon dick. Another great band name.
I know.
Demon Dick. We got Demon Dick. Good night. But like it looks like they're using it incorrectly. I also like how it's just like on his like staff too, I guess. I can't tell what's going on, but like I love it, but it looks like just unconscionable to use that on someone.
Oh no. But I think this is like a quick story time. When I turned 18, I convinced my friend who was a year older. I was like, let's go to this. There's a place that, like a video store, but they had a back room. You were that friend. Me too. That's awesome, man. We roll. Also, at one point we ran out like a poor guy trying to rent porn because I was like, oh my God, look at. We were like finding like titles. Like there was a film called Dude, Where's My Clit?
We've been asking for years. Can someone tell us?
It's funny. I'm sorry if you can't see the humor in pornography that I don't.
I know. Well, that's why I always ask for the fake porn titles at the end of episodes that you, me, and Father Malone do together.
It's so funny. We've come up with some gems.
Something code.
I was trying to remember that the other day, and I could not.
I was telling Mike White about it. I was like, Heather always had the best ones because she used colon in one of them, and it was like the funniest fucking one.
How was it?
I don't know. I just have to go. If you want to find out, go listen to the episodes. I already know what the title for this movie would be. The porno title, Night Creams.
Ew.
Ew. I mean, is it not? I mean, like she's having night dreams. I mean, the equivalent is the night creams, bro.
That's
nocturnal emissions is the funniest phrase.
That's also. It sounds like the name of an industrial band from the 80s.
Now touring with Tool is Nocturnal Emissions.
Yeah, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, all right, rock and roll.
But this video store was attached to like another store that like sold like lingerie and like clubwear. But they had a back room with toys. But some of these toys, I think, literally were probably older than Nightdreams because they had ones that looked totally like old school. If you watch 70s erotica, old school, like that hard, cheap-looking plastic that looks like it probably has lead in it. Like, it's like, and I'm just like, oh my God, like if you hate somebody, get them this sex toy. If you're trying to have them break up with you, buy them this. Like, it's like, do you hate the walls of my vagina so much that you gave this to me? That was like, because it looks like it has unhealthy properties. like if it's exposed to the sun, it starts glowing.
I think people really take for granted the ease with which one can have sex with a facsimile vagina or penis in 2023.
We've come a long way.
From pieces of wood and stone. Yeah. Well, I mean, stone dildos are a thing, like, and wooden dildos had to have been a thing too. Like,
talking about like a lady part.
Oh.
And I was like, a guy would hurt himself.
Like a stone. Yeah.
Like, or a wood? Ooh.
Yeah, but that was speaking more for like that. They're like a dude fucking like a wooden handle hole. Like, I don't know.
We've gone down a weird.
Well, I mean, again, like I can't help it when they show us some sex toys on screen that look unpleasant to be around.
They are, but it's hell. Like, so it's very fitting.
I wondered that. Like, was that kind of the point then?
I mean, it is a great visual, and I wouldn't be the little Miss Trivia lady if I didn't point out the main woman that she's interacting with is Lottie Sanders, who was a very popular adult model and actress at the time. So if anybody's like, hey, here's the lovely brunette having a great time with Satan and Dorothy LeMay, it's Lottie Sanders. You're welcome.
Who's the woman eating Satan's asshole?
Is that Dorothy? I'm trying to remember who was doing the Satan rimming. I think that was Dorothy.
Is it? Yeah, I think you're right.
It might have been Lonnie. If it's not Dorothy, it's Lonnie. You can kind of do the elimination.
I love the visual of a woman giving the devil a blowjob. Like, that's funny. Like, that's hilarious, right? Like,
I mean, I want to write a country song about it.
Right. The devil. I think didn't Charlie Daniels already write a song about the devil going down in Georgia?
Now, Chris, down here in the South, when Charlie Daniels died, everybody lowered their rebel flags at half-mast.
That's true.
They're racist. Now,
is that what that song's called? Sure. The devil went down in Georgia?
Went down to Georgia.
Went down on Georgia.
The devil went down
on Georgia, and boy, was a sight to see. He had some flames and a whipped old tail, and he was screaming, "Mighty O-E."
Mighty O-E. That's my favorite part of that song.
I mean, I don't know what Charlie Daniels' song about the woman giving the devil head would be about, but I'd listen to it.
That'd be before he found Jesus.
Right? God.
Actually, real quick, we do have a scene with the doctors where they're having dinner, and that plate of food, I think, actually arguably might be even more distressing looking than any of the satanic sex toys.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that food.
It's like some 70s, like, I think they call it like some 70s regrettable meals or dinners where you see like old recipe cards and it's like people are making, like, here's our gelatin tuna casserole. It's like weird shit. Like I'm like, I don't know if this was people wanted to lose weight, so we'll just make food as absolutely repellent as possible so we won't eat it. It was a different time.
I like the vaguely phallic candles on the table. They're vaguely phallic. I mean, most things in this movie are, to be fair.
Most candles are vaguely phallic, though.
Yeah, but these are ribbed candles.
For her pleasure.
For somebody's.
It doesn't have to be a her. That's right.
Right.
Everybody's got a hole.
What fucking children's book is that? Everybody. That's how you teach kids about sexuality. Is a book called Everybody's Got a Hole. There you go, Heather.
Terrible. I was thinking more like we could make some trucker hats that have it.
Everybody's got a hole.
Everybody got a hole, and it's like a winky emoji, but the mouth is like making an O.
Honk if you have a hole.
Well, that's a lot of
Honk,
honking.
honk. Everybody's honking.
Everybody's got a hole.
Everybody's got a hole.
All the time.
Does Jesus? Are you guys? She's not fucking Jesus at the end of the movie. Is she fucking God?
No, I think he's just a nice seraph.
He's nice, all right.
He's very Kevin James, the good Kevin James.
I wish it was the other one. Just a schlubby guy.
Really underrated actor. Like, again, kind of like Dorothy LeMay. Like, he died really young though, which is sad. And from all accounts, like a really nice guy. Really underrated as an actor. Really good actor. He pops back up in Cafe Flash and as Johnny Rico. And it's like almost like, again, it's kind of like what I said about Andy. Like almost two very different characters and striking as both of them. He's great. And I love just like the softness of this scene. It's kind of like after we've had this kind of like crazy sort of like Mr. Toad's wild ride of eroticism. It's kind of nice to have the last sort of sex scene be this very sort of idyllic, like very beautiful, romantic
who doesn't
kind
love
of scene.
gymnopedes, right? Like Eric Satie.
I love Satie.
Yeah, it cracks me up. I was watching this and that's what starts playing and I was like, wow, pretty good music choice. It's very idealized sex, and I like that it's shot, at least initially, kind of like voyeuristically too. And then it's very first person, but like initially you're kind of like watching from like the other side of like a gate is what it looks like. And then it's close-ups, just lots of close-ups in this particular vignette, like more close-ups than there have been in any other vignette throughout the movie too.
It's she has reached Paradiso.
Yeah. I like where this movie ends up going. I like that it's kind of like the final logical step is then she's blowing an angel in heaven. So there you go.
Which better her than Della Reese, am I right?
Yeah.
Touched by an angel, bad touch by an angel. Yeah, no, and then I love the ending of this movie. And this is, I resent saying spoiler alert for something that came out in 81. People don't be so precious. I know some people get anal. Listen, if a movie's great, I maybe
do anal too.
Yeah, but if a film's great, it doesn't matter if you know the ending. It's still going to have an impact. I knew the ending of Sleepaway Camp going into that movie, and it still was amazing and jarring. So let's not be so babies. I shouldn't be so offensive. Whatever. I'm just saying if a film's old enough to buy alcohol, you can spoiler it.
10 years. 10 years is what I say.
Yeah, I can understand if something just came out and it's new and you don't want spoilers, like especially with TV. That's different. But I had an editor once get on to me. He's like, there needs to be a spoiler warning. And this was for a film that came out in 84. And I was like, really? Really? Okay. But we have a twist of sorts because basically there's an illusion. I don't even want to say the dialogue. I do want that to be a little bit of a surprise because I think it's so good. But we have a reveal that perhaps the one that's been in charge this whole time is Mrs. Van Houten.
Yeah. And she's been making them watch her, I guess. Yeah.
Which is, and they've been enjoying it. Like they're clearly like the female, certainly more so than the male doctor, though he's more buttoned up and repressed.
Well, so is she, right? Like,
but she's always like licking her lips and being like, she's way into it. And he's just like trying to be professional, but repressed. Andy does that, like that subtle kind of thing so well too. It's a good dynamic, especially because I think, again, like we're kind of conditioned to be used to seeing the man being so sexually aggressive and where women are supposed to be more coy and like, and instead we get the flip of this in every which way but loose here. Mrs. Van Houten's the aggressor. The female doctor's clearly a lot more lascivious openly than the male. I love that. Like, that's so cool. It's such a nice little just sort of twist of the trope. And that smirk that the film ends up, that little kind of wry smirk that Dorothy LeMay has, it's so cute. And just kind of like if it has the film end where you're just like, whoa, it's just that nice little final touch of just like, oh my God, what have I watched? How do I process? It's so cool.
And I love what she's wearing too. She's wearing all black. She's been in all white the entire movie. and then she's in all black, and she just, I mean, the ending took me by surprise. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this ain't no beach blanket bunghole people. This is art.
I know beach blanket bunghole.
Apparently LBJ does too. Gross.
the beach blanket bunghole. God.
Oh,
You're welcome.
God, I hate my brain.
I will say this film has the most tastefully filmed cum shot I've ever seen. Can I say that out loud? Is that legal? Am I going to go to court for that? Am I going to go to jail?
No. The cum jail?
Take me there.
Hey,
everybody, come on. Gotta represent while you can. The angel cum shot at the end of the movie, filmed down the length of his pecker, like straight on. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course I do.
I have the poster behind me.
I wish that was I wish that was the poster on the wall. It was just like a front on shot. People coming to your office are just like, what?
Like anybody's allowed in here.
That's fair.
Please.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But I was tastefully done. But it took me by surprise because I was like, this is just like a lingering shot on this man's massive penis. Like, and they don't pull away. I was like, wow, okay. Like, goddamn. Like, and it's done rather well.
Yeah, that's of course. I mean, that's the thing. If it's like a stamp of quality as far as I'm concerned, you know. It's yeah, I think in this film, especially the fact that, you know, to make such a standout film in an era where there were a number of like great adult films that were guest films. You know, it's not just like, oh, it's good for porn. No, there's so many films that are great films. But even in like the golden, you know, era, like Nightdreams would stand out. Because there's nothing else like it. And to be honest, it's also like, I've often felt like in some ways, like Steven, like is kind of like an outlier in a way as a director of the adult film industry. And that's not like bad. I mean, because obviously I'm a huge, you know, there's so many directors I've written about and I love that are from that era. So it's definitely, you know, when I say that it's not meant as a derogatory towards anybody, it's just, I just think that he is so unique, that he is his own category. He is his own artist. And I don't think there's anybody like him in any genre.
Well, I've never seen anything like this before. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, how often can you say that about anything?
Very, very infrequently, especially when it's something like this, where again, like on the face of it, if you showed this to many people, they would not have any way to process it other than porn. Like, and that's a shame, but I get it, but it's a shame. And like, I immensely enjoyed this for the adult film that it is, for the film that it is, frankly.
Right on. Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, there's always going to be, it doesn't matter what, I mean, we could be talking about, you know, Roberta Rossellini. There's always going to be people that are going to be like, oh, I don't like reading subtitles, or oh, this isn't blind. You know, to paraphrase Hodorowski, why you make pictures for them, they are blind. You know, there's always going to be people that, and you know what, to some defense, not everything's for everybody, and that's okay too. Like, you know, but to me, if you're listening to this and you want to see something that is creative, that is different, and that is adult. And to me, like adult to me is like Clockwork Orange is an adult film. And that was originally rated X. Like the whole thing is X rating adult films originally just meant stuff where you could explore, you know, more mature topics and themes and be like, yeah, this is for adults. This isn't, you know, this isn't for a 13-year-old. This is for 18 and over. But yeah, if you're like, I want to see something creative and surreal and maybe sexy, and something where, to me, like when you're an artist and you take that step outside the box to make your own area, it's a sign of love and respect in a way to your audience, because you're not playing them for a sucker. You're not playing them cheap. You're not being like, oh, okay, I know what you want. I'll give you what you want. No, you're like, I'm going to make you something that is straight from my brain, from my heart, from my, you know, that is my pure vision.
Right.
And, you know, I think sometimes people will be like, oh, that's pretentious or whatever. But, you know, the real pretension is thinking that, you know, people that will never love you want to make great art for you. And they don't. And everything has its place. Like, there's nothing wrong with going to, you know, watch a big Hollywood, you know, explodey, you know, action film. And, there's plenty of films I love that I wouldn't say is high art if that's supposed to be. I mean, Blood Diner is one of my favorite movies, and it's a fun, silly, goofy horror movie, and it's supposed to be, Not everything has to be high art, but when I see an artist like Steven Sadian, who is he is 100% himself, that's a sign of love to me. That's why I love John Cassavetes. It's the same thing. These are people that can only be who they are as artists. And when somebody's that honest with you, that's respect and that's love.
I agree with you 100%. Like, and it's weird, I don't know. I feel like so many people, and I'm not going to just say people my age, but I think people in general have and we kind of mentioned this at the top of the episode, like have a very weird and personal kind of relationship with intimacy and sex and what that means for them. And then I think the media and just kind of the world and our society, the American society specifically, has gone a long way to making things worse. Because again, I mean, I'm not saying people should be fucking in the streets, but I think people fucking in the streets would be a much better option than people beating the shit out of each other in the streets.
Or getting shot.
Right. And it's like, if everybody put the Glocks down, picked up their cocks. But you know what I mean? Like, not to be glib, but again, as someone who is just very progressive about sex and sexuality with my own. And again, I'd like to live in a world where there are more people like that, just because, again, I feel like there are a lot of people that are in a very much a further direction that is a lot worse for everybody. I don't know. It's just, it's weird because, again, like pornography almost feels utilitarian, right? Like it's for a purpose. It's for masturbation and nobody uses it. Like, I don't know what you're using porn for. And so when something has people being penetrated in it, it automatically becomes porn, which means it automatically devalues it, right? As a medium. And I don't know how we get away from that, because porn is an industry just like anything else. They make a product just like anything else. It'd be like going to McDonald's and eating a hamburger and never buying anything else and being like, well, why don't they sell anything else? It's like, well, you're just choosing this one thing. If you look at porn and just say, I'm just going to jerk off to it and not watch it for anything else, like maybe that's the intention of the filmmaker, is to turn you on. But like some filmmakers have to be doing other things like this, because this is, again, like vaguely pornographic, but more an adult film, which is an important distinction, because it's unfortunate that we have to make it. But that's the distinction that has to be made.
Yeah. Well, and especially when it's so weird, because you think about it, like, I think one could argue that a lot of films are, I mean, because think about it, like, you go to a comedy to laugh, you go to a horror movie to be scared, right. You go to a drama, I guess, to cry. Like, but for some reason, if you're watching something for titillation, that's dirty. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't, it's weird to me. It's not healthy, but also kind of like going back to what you were saying, I think one can make a very good argument that sometimes art is most impactful when it's subversive. And, when people are going into something just thinking it's going to be, sexy adult fun time, but then there's something else going on, like a story or like something that's very Dada imagery wise, or there's a YouTube channel I've gotten into called Barefoot and Independent, and they do a lot of things, but one of the things is they'll do like G-rated cuts of classic adult films, and the editing's really great. But they did one on this mid-90s gay film called Corruption 2, and it's like cop-centered, and there's actually, and it's kind of cool because we're watching the G-rated cut. Obviously, you're not seeing any sex because it's on YouTube, so you're really just getting story. But it's like, there's actually like some sensitivity about one of the cops is like a nice cop, but he realized he's struggling, realizing, hey, I'm gay. And maybe some of these laws are bullshit. Why are we just focusing on adult men who aren't hurting anything?
Right.
And you're having that in a film, and by the mid-90s, this whole era of predominant filmmakers making cinema is kind of gone in a lot of ways. Not totally gone, but it's on the wane. But yet here you go. Like, maybe it's not on the wane. Like, maybe it's just being dressed up more to be obviously like shot on video, sex fest, but there's something else. There's an underlying thing still there. And I think finding shit like that out is so cool. Like, it's like, don't write everything off. It'd be like watching, I don't know, it'd be kind of like going to, watching like a big, dumb action film, but then it has something really like genuinely touching or something in there where you're like, that's actually really smart and progressive. And I didn't expect that. And you don't always get that in that genre either. But when you do, it's a treat. And I just think people need to be more open-minded about what is constituted as art, but also just in general, like, expand your mind, like don't, like if you just live the status quo life of what's expected of you as far as like, well, this is art and this is this and this is that, and you're just eating the same fucking food, that's a sad life. That's a sad life. There's a whole world out there of art, of culture, of different kinds of people than you, and embrace that. It's our differences is what makes us so unique and special. It's what makes this weird, at times kind of fucking depressing, angry, awful existence also really beautiful and touching and amazing and magical.
I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, we were joking about a porn centric or adult film centric podcast, and I'm sure they're out there. And I don't think it's such a bad idea because, again, like, I think in a lot of ways, like, I don't know, the hangups in this country with stuff like this are really frustrating for someone like myself. But I can't imagine that I'm the only one who's frustrated, because there are industries full of people who are almost letting their frustrations exist externally by making it their job,
Well, and that's the thing is that it's, the minute that somebody tries to take away your rights when you're not hurting anybody, you're not breaking any real laws, like you're not abusing somebody, you're not robbing somebody, you're not killing somebody, you're an adult and you're loving another adult. What's the problem?
Right.
You're not hurting anybody. And yet, but that's the thing, fascism violates the innocent while never solving or fighting the real crimes going on, Yeah. And that could be a whole other podcast. But there are actually, if somebody's listening to this and really curious about learning more about adult film in a cinematic language, like if you want to know the history, I highly recommend the Rialto Report. They do phenomenal work. There's a newer one that talks about Golden Age film called I think it's called You Like This? You can find it like on Spreaker and podcasts, and it's these two girls that are amazing, or women, sorry, girl. But they're great. And Holly Randall Unlimited. Holly Randall actually works within the industry. Her mother is Suze Randall, who was a pioneering adult photographer and later on film director, as was her father, Humphrey Knight. And Holly directs and shoots adult film, and she's been doing that for 20 years. So you get to not only have her perspective as a woman in the adult industry, but every week she interviews adult performers, directors, writers. And I've actually learned so much more about current adult stuff through her, because I don't really watch current day adult films for the most part, to be honest. Like, it's just not really my bag. But I have like actually more of a curiosity just hearing these people, talk, like it's made me realize I had some assumptions, not about, I'm progressive too, but about the film, and realizing, no, there are people out there that are trying to make cool changes. And definitely like with Me Too, there's been a lot of great work at trying to really further solidify protection of performers,
right.
Which I think is wonderful. If only all industries did that, because as much as people are like, oh, the sex industry, boy, nobody gives a shit about how many people aren't making a living wage in this country, are they? If you're worried about workers' rights, maybe look at various people working in retail, retail or any service job that's blue collar, because a lot of us ain't making a living wage. To be honest, you'd be making more money doing sex work, but just with less legal protection. It's fucked, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of issues. But one issues we don't have is the Culture Cast. Thank you so much, Chris, for having me on and ramble. I hope it was as good for you as it was.
It was. Heather. Thank you for asking. I No, I enjoyed talking about this. I was kind of worried when I was sitting down to watch it once I knew that it was adult in nature. Because again, I had to get over my own kind of preconceived expectations. And yeah, I mean, like it was erotic and it was a lot. And I watched it several times. And no, that was not me trying to make a fucking joke. That was me being serious. Like I did watch it. So I did watch it several times, but like I know someone out there's gonna be like, yeah, okay, funny guy. But I enjoyed it a lot. And again, it's an interesting film. Like it's not any one thing. And I think that's what makes it so interesting is it's very much uniquely someone's idea of something and they executed it pretty well as far as I can tell.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. And I'm so glad you got to go on, like, we talked about Van Houten's journey. This was going to be like such a cool journey to like talk about this with you, and this being your first like Steven Sadian film and being the first like explicit adult film you've talked about on the show, which was so cool. I'm glad I got to be the first co-host for that. Like I've talked about adult films on Projection Booth, but I did not get to be on the first one.
Oh, there you go.
I don't think so, actually. I'd have to ask Mike. Maybe I was.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I don't think it was.
Well, you weren't on the episode when we covered Sonic the Hedgehog, though.
I have only just recently forgiven Mike for that oversight. I love you, Mike.
Wow.
But I question your ways, sir.
Well, hey,
for not having me on Sonic the Hedgehog.
I think it's in a lot of ways, I don't know if, when I will watch his next films, but I'm interested to also see kind of where his other films go from here, Steven Sadian stuff. Because again, like it's so unique and distinct and different. Like everything else has got to be pretty kind of weird and strange too, I'm assuming.
Oh, I mean, it's obviously I'm a big fan. Now, I mean, and it actually what's cool though is each film is a little different because like with Cafe Flesh, it's a lot darker. And it's brilliant. That's really like Steven getting to be a full-on director because it's without Francis. But and then if somebody's listening to this and I get it, not everybody wants to watch explicit sex. I think, and that's fine. Like it's not like I do. I am like if you're coming at it from a place where you're just like I'm not grossed out as semen body, but this just isn't for me. That's fine,
right?
But
totally.
He did make a sequel of sorts to the silent film classic Cabin of Dr. Caligari called Dr. Caligari, released in 1989, is his first R-rated film. And Mondo Macabro has recently put out a gorgeous restored Blu-ray of it with plenty of amazing supplements. If you're one of the lucky duckies that get one of the first 2,000 copies, you'll be getting my essay.
Nice.
That is part of that release. And yes, and there'll be more to come. Nightdreams, the future of that getting a proper release is a little more right now cloudy just because they're trying to find a good print to restore and trying to track down a theatrical like print, like a film negative of it's been hard. Which is weird because the film did very well. But yeah, that's the thing is that people didn't even think in terms of film preservation that much back in the 80s with classic Hollywood movies, much less adult films. Forget it. People took, anything that's considered to be made for the masses, especially working class masses, is usually considered the least salvageable of culture, which again is classist and bullshit, but it is, it is what it is. But let's hope. Because otherwise, yeah, the VCX DVD, which I think the DVD might be out of print, but it's a VHS transfer. There's no extras. And in fact, they superimpose more explicit images on the poster, like on the front of it and on the back that are not from the movie.
Weird.
It's gross. It's kind of like they obviously, a lot of the adult companies did not and do not see the value in their library and history, unfortunately.
Sure.
The Strip Picks is an exception. They do beautiful work and they do care. Like, and that's Stephen Morowitz, who's amazing. And Stephen cares. Like, he's getting the rights back. He has the rights back to his films. It's just with Nightdreams, it's just hopefully everybody, knock on wood, find a print. Hey, if they found an uncut print of Metropolis and Latin America a few years ago.
Right.
Anything's possible.
Right.
So
sure.
check your attics. But but yeah. And but yeah, thank you so much, Chris. This was so much fun. Thank you for letting me preach the word of Stephen Sadie.
I'm glad you were able to join me because I was also kind of concerned because again, like it seems like a world that I'm kind of unfamiliar with. So, now I wanted to have you on because I knew how, much of a fan of Stephen Sadie and stuff you are. And obviously, you know him personally. So figured it was kind of, peanut butter and jelly. So there you go. So yeah, I would say final thoughts, but I think we've both given them. So on that note, let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Culturecast.
S'il vous plaît, nous pouvons passer à table.
Je te fais confiance.
Je prendrais bien du caviar, mais j'ai peur qu'il soit pas de très bonne qualité.
J'ai peine à croire que le fossé entre les pauvres et les riches se creuse chaque jour, Excellence.
Écoute-moi, est-ce que tu es libre samedi pour déjeuner? Samedi, très bien. Je n'ai rien de prévu.
Mais enfin, où sont monsieur et madame? Ils sont partis.
Je ne connais pas le texte.
Mon fils, c'est moi.
Vite, déshabille-toi.
C'est ma femme qui est dans ta chambre?
Oui. Je crois que ma place n'est pas ici.
Qu'est-ce qui t'arrive?
Oh, rien. Un rêve absurde.
Ah, les rêves.
So for the next Culturecast, we are going to be talking about The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, which is not an adult film, best I can tell. And we will be joined by Bill Ackerman.
Yay!
And Jess Byer.
Bill. Bill Ackerman's the best. And, Bill guest hosted an episode of Directors Club that has me and Justine Smith. Hope that's her name, because otherwise I'm fucking it up, but she's great. And she's from Canada. But we talk about the films of Stephen Sadie.
Nice. Yeah.
So if you love this episode, definitely seek that one out too.
So on that note, speaking of seeking things out, where should people go to find the rest of the stuff that you work on, Heather?
Well, I am on Linktree. I finally got part of the Being the Cool Kids Club, so you can find me at linktree.com at Mondo Heather, or not at Mondo Heather, /Mondo Heather. I also recently, my essay on the Jane by Charlotte Blu-ray is out, and that's Charlotte Gainsbourg's really fascinating documentary on her mother, Jane Birkin. So if you're into French music, actresses, and just great documentaries, please check that out. It's over at vinegarsyndrome.com.
Nice. As for the things that I work on, weirdingwaymedia.com, you can find a little show that Heather and Father Malone and HP co-hosts called Noise Junkies over there, along with the projection booth, 80s TV ladies, all the good things that you've heard me mention a million times before, and I'll continue to mention them. So there you go. As for this show, you can find us here and at weirdingwaymedia.com and on Patreon /Culturecast, where you can go and kick us some money if you're interested. 10, 20, 50. Go check it out. Be part. Enjoy. Do that thing. If you do it, you will get things in return. That is the way quid pro quo works, or the capitalist system, depending on how you want to look at it. Heather, thank you so much for joining me. This was fun.
Thank you. No, it was my pleasure.
And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.